First of all, thank you, Brand Innovators, for another great event. Also, Porsche for hosting. What a cool venue. I'm going to do a little anecdote. It's somewhat relevant to our conversation, but Porsche has a bit of nostalgia for me personally. Shit, I'm getting emotional because it's about my dad. My dad was a big fan of Porsche. He loved it. 911 Targa was his preference, and it stemmed from his dad's relationship with Porsche. He was an Army guy, engineer, worked at IBM for his entire life, and along the way he did buy a Porsche. I was trying to verify this, but it was I think it was a 914, 1965. I know it was definitely yellow because it's ingrained in my memory. So my dad actually never bought one or owned one. But fast forward to me, the next generation, I was kind of in like the mid part of my career, starting to have some success. Certainly didn't have all the responsibilities I do now in terms of family and house and all the expensive things that we deal with every day. But I did reward myself, and I bought a Porsche. It was kind of in that entry-level category. It was a Cayman. But it was awesome. Obviously, a really fun car to drive. But it gets emotional. But we're it all kind of came together is when my dad used to visit or watch our house or whatnot. He would take it out for a spin, and you could just see the joy in his face, and maybe felt a little proud of his son too. So I just think this is a good example of like what my dad passed a couple years ago, so that's why it's a little bit more emotional than these memories hit a little differently. So God, I always get emotional at weddings. I think it's my first industry event that I got a little emotional. So bear with me. But I think it just shows like the power a brand can have, and really kind of cross-generational too. And I think that bleeds into this conversation today, because how do you maintain that? How do you kind of maintain that brand equity as you kind of navigate into the new generation? So I'm talking way too much as a moderator.
Right.
But why don't you guys just do a quick intro and your roles and the brands you work for?
Sure. Well, thank you. Hello, can you hear me? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay, well, thank you. I'm Shivram. Let's see. Is that one working? Yeah. That was working. Okay, well. Hi, I'm Shivram Vaideeswaran. I'm Vice President of Brand and Product Marketing for Yahoo and AOL. I've been here for just about a year now, and really focused on revitalizing these like super iconic internet brands that have a great storied history and lots of people using them, but need to get them into more hands. So all the great joys of marketing that we get to pull together and bring to life. So thanks for having me. And yeah, this conference room is pretty epic. Like the best view probably of any conference I've ever been to. So big thank you to Porsche for hosting us here.
Hi everyone.
Great. Yeah, I know.
Yes. All right. Hi everyone. Sherry Malgren, Truist Bank. Thrilled to be here today with you all. I lead enterprise social media and influencer marketing at Truist, and our team is responsible for everything social. So we've kind of kept everything together as we've built Truist and built Truist marketing. So we have responsibility for all of social, which is, as you can imagine, a lot of fun, fast moving. But thrilled to be here today to talk to you guys about consumers in the fast-paced world of marketing.
It works. Awesome. Got my own down here. Hi, I'm Cynthia Lee. I am the Senior Director for Global Paid Media and Partnerships for Holland America Line and Seabourn Cruises. We are part of Carnival Corporation, and I'm thrilled to be here. It's my first event, so thank you so much for having us, and thank you for being such a great audience. Oh, shoot.
All right, thank you. By the way, have you ever heard the term marry up? There's one party that kind of clearly benefits from the relationship. That's kind of how I feel today. These guys are so smart and have really impressive career, so bear with me as I try to keep up with these super intelligent industry experts here. So, okay, so let's get into what we were here for, and get into how we're going to market to the next generation of consumers. So, this is for everybody. Given the constant kind of evolution in consumer behavior, what are some of the most significant shifts you're seeing in how younger generations engage with brands? Influencer marketing.
I mean, I think there's a couple different things that at least I'm seeing. One is, consumers are continuously looking for brands that have a little bit of authenticity to them when it comes to who they are, what they stand for, what they believe in, and what's their purpose. And I think you're seeing more and more brands start to reach into their history and kind of going back to where they started from and bringing some of those values back to where they are today. I think it just helps give a little bit more stability, especially as you're seeing a lot of, startups, fly-by-night brands, like, companies that may not have the same focus as others that are coming into play. And then it also, I think, helps establish, for things like influencer marketing and others, where you can actually get out there and find people who are like-minded who can tell that story along with you.
Yeah, I would say, it's so interesting to sort of learn and understand the Gen Z audience and even now Gen Alpha. Really trying to understand interests, behaviors, attitudes. I mean, I think there are probably quite a few Gen Z folks in the room. So they're growing up in a world that is digital and social. That's what they know, and that's what they understand, and that's just how they live their lives. And so figuring out, as a bank, how do we show up in a way that feels authentic, that's real, that's relevant, and how do we understand emerging platforms, right? Like in the world of social, what is the newest trend that's happening in social? Not just from a, girl math or, a trend like that, but like what's the right platform, right, that we need to be on? And when you think about new media, podcasts, like they're huge today. So how, as a bank, can we show up in the places that they are? When you think about the idea of meet them where they are, it's not just about the content, but it's also meeting them in the right channel and delivering that right connected experience. And so it's a constant challenge. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work too to try to make sure that we're keeping up with the fast-paced world of social and all the emerging trends that come with it.
For Holland America Line, we are a 150-year-old brand, so we have a great storied history, and traditionally we cater to an older audience. So I want to thank everyone who's, aunts, grandparents, neighbors have traveled with us. You've kept our ships full. So we have not marketed to the next generation. I was going to stop there. Hold on. Lunch is next, so I honestly thought that'd be a really funny way to speed things along. But a major global event happened like COVID, and suddenly that audience was not ready to cruise. So we lost our whole base. We lost all of it. It took them a very long time to feel comfortable cruising, and so what we did was we completely pivoted. We threw away all the demographics, and we said this has to be based on interests, on passions, on a desire to have, experience culture, and some of the things that we've offered. And frankly, we have some of the best culinary experiences amongst any cruise line, and nobody knew about it. And so it was such an amazing opportunity as a marketer to reach back in and say demographics don't matter, but let's actually go back and see what people are interested in, and the way that they're using mediums actually does transcend many generations. And so, interestingly enough, again, traditionally our audience has been 65 plus. 3 years post-COVID, the average age for a 7-day cruise is now 40. So this has actually been transformational for us. We've completely changed. I don't know if anybody else saw us on Top Chef last year. We hosted the last 2 episodes of the finale on board because our audience has a passion for culinary. We have Chef Morimoto as our fresh fish ambassador, so it has been a complete pivot for us. And it's been truly exciting as a marketer to actually be one of the cruise lines that's leading in terms of getting more customers back on board faster than any of the other cruise lines in the industry. And we appreciate all of our sister brands, we appreciate all of our competitors, but it's definitely been to our advantage to just rethink, who wants to have these experiences and how do we engage them. Sorry, I
Love that. Love that. Shivram, this one's for you. How has the approach to brand and product marketing evolved in digital spaces, particularly on platforms that are adapting to serve the needs of a new generation of users?
That's a great question. I think, like, you know, when you look at the core products that hundreds of millions of people use on our platform today, I wouldn't call them the most exciting. They are news, they are finance, they are things like email and search engines. They're incredibly important into your daily lives, but they're not something that you probably spend a ton of time thinking about before you're trying to jump into it. So our role and opportunity is that, like, while we have really strong awareness, you have to continue to stay relevant within culture. You have to find ways to seat yourself back into conversations where there's a nugget or there's a topic that you can hopefully become a part of and create something really interesting and unique. And I think for us, like, social has been a great way to start seeding our kind of brand into the next generation, especially as you think about Gen Z and beyond, and finding those opportunities to be able to tap into that. I think a great example that happened just last week, there was a influencer who has over, I think, it's like 1.9 million followers, posting to her social media that she's so sad that she now has to use a laptop to check her email. She has never had to use a laptop, and now there was like a new feature update to her provider that forced her to have to buy a laptop. And she was like, I can't do this, like literally crying. She's using this like roller on her eyes and is so sad. And so, you know, we reached out and said, you don't need to use your laptop and you can still do this with Yahoo. And so, like, it's a small little thing, but like, you know, and, you know, we sent her a little like iPad that had the Yahoo app on it. And then a week later, she posted, she's like, oh my God, this is incredible. Posted to all of her followers, changed her handle to a Yahoo email address, right? And said, like, Yahoo changed my life. Like, no one was going to be talking about us if we just gone out there and said, email, that's great for you, you know? But, like, we have to find those ways to connect into these new audiences. And, like, the only way that we're going to do that is by being really smart and hopefully being really thoughtful.
I'm just curious, how did you find this influencer talking about this challenge?
Have an incredible social media and listening team, yeah, that is constantly on the prowl and really just paying attention to key topics around our products, right? Like what's happening in the world of search, you know, rather than us talking about, you know, here's a list of top 10 search topics that are happening around the world. We worked with like a really great influencer who told really funny stories for the craziest things people are searching for on our platform. Because that's a lot more interesting than going in and seeing like everyone's searching for the Olympics today. Great, like we get that. So I think you have to kind of start mining and digging into some of the conversations that are happening, and we've got an incredible team that's helping us.
Love that. Okay, cool. Sherry, this one's for you. Social media is often the first touch point for younger consumers with a brand. How is Truist leveraging social media and influencers to authentically connect with and build trust among next-gen consumers?
Great question. Well, so social is a significant part of our channel mix at Truist. I mean, it sits right up there with search and TV, and Truist has a presence across 8 social platforms. So we do invest in paid, and we do have a really sophisticated strategic approach for how we leverage social, which is not easy for a bank to do, and especially when you think about content, you know, creation. And how do we find ways to create authentic, transparent, genuine content that's going to connect with people and their money on social, and how they think about their money. And so, you know, we're really leaning into platform trends and insights. We're leaning into our teams to help us figure out like what is the right kind of content and how best to share it. Brand content is great, but to your point about influencer, that plays a significant role for us. And finding the right influencer partners to help us create content that's authentic and real and that's truly a part of their life. You know, today, you know, especially with Gen Z, like you can't trick them, right? They don't want to see ads. They want, you know, integrated, branded content that is part of their life story. And so we have a content series called Money and Mindset that's very focused around, you know, budgeting and saving, tips, tools, resources, calculators. And so that's really been our best way in with our influencer content partners, content creator partners, because it gives them something to talk about that's real. It's a part of their life, and it can be part of their, you know, their Instagram stories or their TikToks. And so I think for us, the biggest thing is finding influencer partners and content creator partners who care about what we care about. We're a purpose-driven financial services institution, and that is our differentiator. Our purpose is to inspire and build better lives and communities, and so finding influencer and content creator partners who have a purpose, a shared purpose, who care about our brand message of care, and who really, want to lean into the world of financial services and have a better financial life and leverage these tools in money and mindset is really the best way in for us. And we also are very fortunate to have sports and sponsorships in Truist Park, you might know, if you're in Atlanta, and the Truist Championship if you're in the golf world. So we're really fortunate to have those partnerships too, because that gives us additional ways in to partner with, NFL players and potentially, PGA Tour golfers, but not just to talk about the sport, right? To talk about life and money, which is unique and different. And it's really interesting because when we do approach these partners about content creation, they love it. They're kind of like, wow, no one's ever asked us to talk about the money before. And it just sort of gives them the permission to talk about something that is taboo. So it's a unique and different way for us to connect into the younger audiences because, FinTalk is a whole thing right now. You're out there on TikTok.
Awesome. And also bonus points because you basically answered the next question. So no, it's perfect. It's great. We're trying to be efficient here. Now, just time check real quick. Or good. Who am I looking at for a time check? We're gonna keep on going. Okay. Let's see. This is to everybody. Personalization is becoming more critical, but privacy concerns are also growing among younger consumers. How are you balancing personalization with privacy to ensure that your approaches feel both customized and respectful?
I'll jump in first on this one. So I think the big piece there, I mentioned this earlier, we had to relook at who our audience is. We do get this benefit, though, of seeing their behaviors on board our ship. What are the things that they're signing up for? What are the activities that they're talking about? And even going back and maybe some of the recommendations that they're coming forward with. So we've really looked at then a duality of how do we profile these folks? Who are these new bookers? Who are these new folks coming on board? And then secondarily, what are the activities that interest them the most? And what we've actually found is there is no way to replicate Alaska, in Dallas or in Atlanta. That is an experience you really do have to travel to. But how can we find adjacent activities that they appreciate and that they really resonate with? Traditions and history. We've really found that those are some of the things that they, are really centered around. So how do we take advantage of that and find them in those environments, and then also start to tell the story about how you can experience that, plus you can have this amazing experience on board our ship and go to amazing places all around the world. So in saying that, we've really done a profile then from the data perspective, and then marrying that with content, and we just don't take that for granted. Because new to cruise is real. We know that the next cruiser might not look like the last one, and again, we had that very real experience post-COVID. So we're always trying to look then for what are the new passions, what are the new interests, and making sure that we're marrying that up and doing it in a really safe way, because that keeps us in an environment then where we're not holding data in a way that doesn't lead to somebody saying, no, I want you to have this because I want you to book my ticket.
I would say from a banking standpoint, we have personalization built into our app, right, to your online and mobile banking experiences. And of course, really bringing the brand to life through the humanized experience when you visit a branch or when you call us or if you're talking to social care. So all of that is really matters when it comes to personalization. But I think from my team's perspective, from a social media standpoint, we think about social as experiential. We don't think about it as advertising. And so through that, we're really trying to think about how does personalization come to life on social? And how do you do that in a way on social and through influencers to where you can create content and messages that will resonate to your audience? So really leaning into, from a personalization standpoint, audience first approach, really meet them where they are, right? When you think about Gen Z, it's so broad. You can't say, well, I'm just going to go target Gen Z, right? If you really want to get in front of the Gen Z audience that you care about, you need to understand their attitudes, interests, behaviors, and then you need to design content that feels right to them. And then you have to, then you put it in social, and the algorithms are going to help decide who that gets in front of, and then the content that works the best for your target audience is what's going to rise, and you want to create more of that. So, social presents unique challenges when it comes to personalization, but I think through content creation, especially with the changes coming with algorithms and cookies and all the things out there, that's really going to be the way in for the future.
That's such a good. Do you want to? Okay, it's such a good answer. I mean, I think often personalization, people think like, this is a message that's catered to me based on X, Y, and Z attributes. But I think in particular for next Gen Z, it is really about the experience that they have. And they value experience more than other generations. So it's a big component to how do you address personalization. So great. Let's go, Shivram, let's go to you here. So with Yahoo and AOL's wealth of data, how are you using insights to create meaningful, personalized experiences that appeal to younger audiences? So I guess this is somewhat relevant to what stuff.
No, it's perfect. I mean, I think, personalization to that point, like you can either look at a very algorithmic process, which is, what a lot of platforms use today, right? You go on there and then it starts to learn, and hopefully it finds something that is sticky for you and it starts to send you a whole bunch of random stuff trying to figure out whether you're going to like it or not. We've taken a little bit of a different approach when we're looking at like our Yahoo News app as an example. The first time you come onto an app, and if there's not content that's relevant to you, you're probably less likely to read it or continue to scroll. And so what we've tried to do is actually build out some personalization filters so that you can actually choose the topics that are most interesting to you. And then from there, it starts to get smart on when you click on those topics, when you click on those articles, and starts to find what you actually look like and then send you more of that info and content. Versus basically sending you a whole bunch of random stuff and hoping that you click on something. I think that changes the way that you start to work with our app. That changes the way you start to consume media and starts to move you into a place where you're actually consuming things that are interesting to you versus basically trying to scroll to find an article that makes the most sense.
Okay, I'm going to go to the whole crew here. How about, okay, let's do this one. Social media is where trends emerge and fade quickly. How do you stay agile and identify the trends that have potential staying power versus those that just might be too fleeting to invest in? As someone that's in influencer marketing, I feel like the term trends gets abused quite a bit. To me, it's more kind of being relevant in the ecosystem that you are and kind of tapping into those communities and subcultures. But open up to you guys to weigh in. No one wants to listen to me.
I'll jump in first. So, it's an interesting question. I love what you said earlier about the social team being on the prowl, because I feel like that's just such a great way to describe what a social team typically does. I mean, they're immersed in the world of social. And if that's your job, you're in it for a reason because you love it, right? And so the team, tends to be on top of what are the latest trends. But this can be a wonderful place to live as a brand, and it can also be very dangerous because I think you have to understand what the trends are, and then you have to figure out how does your brand, what is the authentic connection to your brand? Because you can either show up and be real and authentic, and it can feel like a really truly integrated branded moment, or it can be an epic fail, and it can feel forced. It can feel like you're just kind of riding along on the journey and you're trying to find your way in, and it's just like, that really didn't work, and then the brand, isn't seen in the most positive light. So really, I think trying to, get in there, but also do that with caution and make sure that you look at your brand values, you look at your purpose, you look at all of the other content that you're creating, and you figure out, is this really a moment that is relevant and real for our brand, or is it that one that we want to sort of just let it pass? So we had there's one quick story about a missed opportunity that we had. It was Oreo cookie, our brand color is purple, and they had a purple filling. And we didn't catch it fast enough, and it was like a fleeting moment, but what a great opportunity for Truist to kind of find our way into that moment and connect our, the color of purple to Truist. You might think, wow, Oreo cookie in a bag, but we had some really great ideas, but that sort of moment had passed. And so anyway, it's just, taking your time, being cautious, but also being brave enough to take advantage of those moments.
We've been incredibly fortunate that when we have our guests on board, they love to share their experience. and they're starting to share their experience in such diverse ways. We have these amazing influencers where it's a grandmother and a daughter traveling the fjords of Norway, and they're having this amazing emotional connection of their having their time together, and this is their experience, and then they're putting it out there for everyone to see, and just how much fun they're having. And it connects now to so many different audiences. We've also had examples of our cruise directors who are incredibly entertaining unto themselves, and now all of a sudden, folks are experiencing that at home, and they get to kind of keep that bit of Holland America line with them, in a much longer and a much more meaningful way. We've also had other, new trends that have evolved for us. I mean, we put Starlink on all of our ships, so now this whole new concept of working from ship is a new phenomenon that is, it's working out for some folks, and they're getting to travel to new places they wouldn't have otherwise, and sharing what that looks like and what it feels like. So we've been really fortunate from that perspective. And then also little things. I mean, sometimes they'll tell us, they're like, we miss the chocolate mints on the pillow. Great. And that actually started out as a social campaign. And one, I can tell you right now, there are lit chocolates on your pillow, in part because it fed back into the product experience. So I think it's become for us very much a full circle loop. We are incredibly fortunate too that this is just such positive commentary that comes out, that gets amplified. So we've really been able to lean into that space, but again, I think that's in part because there's just been so much more optimism about being able to travel again that everyone's really latched onto it, and it's really been helpful for us.
I might just jump in to say, well, one, as a fellow purple brand, we're here to help. So it's fine.
Sense a brand collab opportunity here.
It's coming. But I think it's also I think trends are fleeting. I'm sure everyone in this room knows, if you're not on the trend in less than 24 hours, don't do it. That is the best advice that I can give anyone, because then you're just going to look kind of dated because the trend has already moved on. And I think it always comes back to is there relevance to your product or your brand? There are a lot of brands that just jump into some random trends, and then you're just wah, wah, right? It feels really lame. And there are other opportunities when you actually sometimes need to take a little bit of risk to jump in when your product does fit in. That might make people uncomfortable, right? There was this the trend maybe 6 months ago was the woman singing "I'm looking for a man in finance." We have the #1 finance platform in the country. Every one of you that has an iPhone is using Yahoo Finance right now if you use the stock app. There's a chance for us to tag in there and actually work with that person because it's relevant and it fits in with our product, but makes people feel uncomfortable. Wait, you're talking to a TikToker? We're a finance product. This is weird. But we're no. This gives us the opportunity to actually get into a whole new generation of consumers that may not have thought about us or may not have even known they're using us every day.
Do you have time for any more, or are we good? One more? Okay. Let's make it a good one. Okay, so looking ahead, what do you believe will be the biggest disruptors in the ways brands reach and retain next-gen consumers over the next 5 years? Crystal balls. A fun at the end here.
I think there's, right now there's continued focus, and there's going to be a lot more, pressure on using social media, using digital means to reach consumers, getting highly targeted and highly segmented with audiences, but your opportunities to truly track that process are getting harder, which means that I actually think it's going to be really fun because it's going to force brands to go back to be brands again and to be really interesting and to have points of differentiation and to actually try to stand out rather than hopefully spending all day working on whether your CTA is right. So that's my hope, is that we get back to seeing some of that creativity come back into the marketplace. You can be creative with performance marketing. I'm not saying you can't, but it doesn't build a brand. And I think it's really important for a lot of us over the next 5 years to look at how are we strengthening and building our brands so that all that lower funnel work actually makes sense, versus someone just seeing download my app or try my product, and then they're but I don't know what you stand for. Pass, keep moving.
I think a disruptor is really going to be, social emerging platforms. What's the next one that people are going to really lean into, especially the younger generations? And I think just figuring out from a risk standpoint when and where it makes sense to be where they are, right? and really understanding that it is experiential, right? Like it's marketing. The entire marketing journey is an experience if you do it well. And so figuring out, how to understand what these emerging platforms are, what's the risk involved, and what's the right time for your brand to be present there.
I'm going to lean into sustainability. I mean, a lot of these AI platforms are gobbling up a lot of energy usage and things like that, and I think that it could, potentially pose something that does actually disrupt the industry. And coming from a cruise line, I will say we are absolutely testing biofuels. Like, we get it, we're in this too. But I think those two things are going to come together because it feels like we're seeing a lot of tech and a lot of infrastructure bear the load right now, but I think it's going to really start to cross the line and affect marketing and the brands that decide to lean into it or not.
Well, thank you guys. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.